All right, let's go. So thank you everyone for coming onto the webinar today. If you don't already know, what we're going to be doing is one free webinar every single month for the whole year. We decided to do that during COVID last year. Well, COVID is ongoing, but during COVID, we really wanted to help people in another way to give back and things like that. So we're having guest speakers on everyone. So make sure that if you're not already checking up to date with our upcoming events and things like that, you can find those via our website. But yeah, so today I'm really excited that we're going to be doing one. It's just the Clever Fox crew today. Make sure that if you're in the chat to let us know who you are, like if you're representing a business, what your business is, so that we can kind of get people chatting in the chat as well. Otherwise, we can kind of get down to it. So I'm going to be talking today with Nick, who is the web developer at Clever Fox Creative. I myself am the owner of Clever Fox Creative. We are a boutique branding and web design studio located in North Adelaide. And Nick, say hi.
Hello, how you going?
Cool. So what we're going to be talking about today is really how to clarify your message, how to connect to your audience on a deeper level in a way that's more meaningful to them, and kind of drive them through that process. So this might be perfect for someone if you're struggling to get people to really understand what you do and also why it's actually important to them. Maybe you don't really know if your information is really hitting home with your customers, or you've noticed that people aren't really engaging on your website, or maybe they're just not taking that next step from going onto your website versus, generating a lead or buying a product and things like that. So all of that really comes down to messaging, and that's why I thought it was really important that we cover this off today. And I'm going to hand over to Nick in a second, but we do have a Q&A section on the chat. So if you hover over your screen, there should be a little button that says Q&A. It's totally open. You can also leave questions anonymously if you want to as well, or you can pop them in the chat and I'll be checking them throughout. Make sure that you don't just leave it to the last minute at the end. If you do have something come up while Nick's talking, then definitely leave it in the chat and we'll cover it off. That way you don't forget what you were going to ask and things like that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Nicholas.
Oh, thank you very much, Terry. Awesome. Thanks everyone for being on here. I've been looking forward to this. Really excited to get into it. I'll get started. I just want to start by talking about why any of this messaging stuff is important in the first place. And to do that, I'm just going to use a bit of a story analogy, example we'll call it. So I want you to just imagine that you're a customer with a unique problem. You're a baker, for example. So you're baking cupcakes. You love doing that. You do it, every day on the weekends. And you've been recording videos of yourself doing it, showing your recipes, all that fun stuff. And you're posting those to YouTube, TikTok, all over the place. You have a camera that works well. It shoots good film, but it has pretty crappy audio. So your videos so far have kind of been pretty average in the sound quality. And you've kind of identified that's a problem and you think, okay, I need to do something about this. You've had a look around, you've looked at products, you're a bit concerned because you can't find anything that works with the camera you have. And you're not really also sure what you're looking for in the first place. So you're a bit lost there. You know you have a problem, but you haven't been able to find anyone that's had the same problem. You're looking for a solution there. Let's say you're talking, maybe it's at a party or something, there's three people around you and all three of them happen to be audio technicians. And the first one says, I'm the best in the business when it comes to microphones, no doubt about it. Second one says, I'm an expert at this. I've been doing it for years. I know everything there is to know about microphones. And the third one says, I understand the problems you're having. I've been there. Would you like some help? So, there's no right or wrong answers here, but it's probably safe to say that most people are going to feel more comfortable talking with number three. He's shown a bit of empathy there and not just talking about himself. And so we're talking about websites today and website messaging. So I'm going to kind of convert these messages that these three vendors are saying and kind of put that spin on what these kind of messages and approaches would look like on a website. So let's take vendor one again. This is the kind of message I would expect to see, in a big heading on a website of someone that had that approach. So, we're your number one choice for audio equipment Adelaide, contact us now. Number two would be something like, I've got 45 years experience in the industry. I have all that you could need by now. And the third one would be something like, are you looking to create awesome home videos? Here are some products, resources, info to help you. Reach out if you need a hand. We can offer free advice. So again, you can kind of see that this third approach is going to be all the more welcoming to someone who needs that help. If we go back to the first one, it doesn't really, nothing about this is very compelling as a customer, as a user, and who dictates that they're number one. It's probably just coming from, their own thoughts. And the second one as well, it's great. They've got all the experience and have all you could need, but in our position here, we don't actually know what we need. So we need that help and advice, which vendor three and their approach is a lot more kind of welcoming for us in our situation. So that's just an example there of how messaging works. And there's some people, there are going to be some instances where, the people you're looking to target on your website, they're going to be looking for experience. That's why none of these are really wrong or right. It just kind of depends on who you're talking to, and we'll get back into that shortly. So just to track back a bit and again, kind of bring home what we're talking about here with websites, I just want to talk a bit about what website is, at least in our world at Cloverfox, and where this all fits in. So I've just done this little kind of bar chart. This is not relevant to time spent on these areas, but this is just how I see the percentage of importance on these different areas. So, I say I'm a web designer, but 2/3 of this whole process is discovery and strategy. So when we talk about discovery, it's finding out and learning all that we can about a business, their background, their goals, competition, user personas, brand voice, inspiration, that kind of thing. And then design on the other end is what it looks like. So there needs to be that bridge in the middle, which is strategy. And that's how we kind of take what we know about the business and work out what we're actually going to design, who it's for, what the purpose is, who are we speaking to, how are we going to speak to them, and what do we want them to do. All these kinds of things, that's a big part of messaging inside strategy there. So it's a big part. And when we're looking at messaging, you want to think about like what message you send to your customers. It's important to note as well, like messaging in this context, for me as a web designer, it's not copywriting. We engage copywriters and collaborate with them to help further refine what we're actually putting on the website. But we need to work out from a design point of view with a strategy is, what are these messages we're sending to them? So, are you telling them about yourself? You just, and that was like vendor 1 and 2 from that example before. It's, look at me, I'm on experience, I'm the best in the business. Or are you creating dialogue with them? Are you continuing the conversations they already have in their head and answering their questions before they even, actually asked you? Are you speaking to the problems they have? And do you know what they are? That's sometimes a big hurdle for some businesses. They don't actually really know who they're talking to, or who they want to be talking to. And that brings us into, I guess, kind of step 1 of how this all comes into play. And so in order to know, what we want to say, we need to know who we're saying it to. So what we do is we create user personas. I won't get into this too deep. We did have another webinar that Terry's going to send a follow-up email with any of these resources and stuff I referenced here today. We do have a webinar recording that touches on this and goes into these in depth. Essentially, it's that part of discovery where we outline the kind of, target audience, the user groups that we're going to be talking to for a business. And it's where we identify a whole bunch of stuff. And as you can see there, obviously values and frustrations, a lot of different things that build up to, give us those answers of what we actually want to say to these people, what they want to hear, the problems they're having, what they value. This is a really good building block for kind of knowing what to say and how to do step 2. And now you don't need to have user personas to do this step that we're about to do. It does help. It gives you a bit more clarity. But if you have a good understanding of who you want to be working with and who you want to talk to, that's really what you need to get into this bit. Essentially, when we know who we're talking to, we want to then understand their journey and what it looks like to actually work with you from their perspective. So I'm going to be referencing a lot of content from StoryBrand here, a group in the US somewhere, or Canada. Donald Miller is his name. And he actually has a book, and again, we'll put this in the follow-up. There's a book called Building a Story Brand, and it's really good. It's where I got a lot of this information and what kind of gave me this whole perspective. And so this next segment is going to be very closely following what I've learned from them. And so this here is what they've developed is like their typical storyline. So you can see you've got a character, they have a problem, they then meet a guide who gives them a plan, calls them to action that either ends in success or helps them avoid failure, or both. And so we've got a couple of examples here that, again, they've provided. And one is Hunger Games. I think most people have seen Hunger Games. You got Katniss. She has a problem. She needs to survive. She's been, drawn for the Hunger Games. She wants to stay a good person. That philosophical problem is that, tyranny versus democracy. She meets Haymitch, who's her guide. He's won the Hunger Games, so that's his credibility and his authority in this space. And he gives her that plan of, get people to like you. So I'll sponsor you. That's how you're going to win these games. He's been there. He's done it. The call to actions competes, and then she lives on. District 12 survives, et cetera, et cetera. Another one is Star Wars. So we've got Luke. His problem is he needs to defeat the Empire. Is he a Jedi? He's not sure if he's worthy, that kind of thing. That whole good versus evil. He meets Obi-Wan, who, again, his credibility is he has lived as a Jedi. He's fought these battles in the past, these kind of things. He tells Luke to trust the Force, go defeat the Empire, et cetera, and that's how that storyline plots out. And this is a kind of similar storyline you'll see in a lot of movies and books. Not all, but it's just a very common, interesting, easy to follow storyline. And so what the takeaway from that is that you're not the hero of the story. You're the guide, and the customer is the hero. So in your business, when we're using these, what we call story scripts, to talk to your customer, we're Obi-Wan in this instance, and the customer is Luke, because you want to guide them through their journey. In their head, they're the most important person in this scenario, and they need their problem solved, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to be that guide and help them get there. Excuse me. So what StoryBrand have developed, we're about to go into an example, is something called StoryScript. And you can see it's that same layout of the story, but it gives you some kind of cues to fill them out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get out of this for a second. If I can get out here, I'm going to jump into, they actually have, and again, we'll give this in the references, resources, sorry. They've got a mystorybrand.com website. You can fill these in. Let me just share that for you now. Can you see that, Terry?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so essentially, there we go. Cool. So you can see here, mystorybrand.com, you can create multiple and you can go through and actually fill these out, and it gives you some little cues. So I'm going to run through an example right now. We're going to follow that same kind of, that same theme from the beginning of the, our character is going to be, we'll call her Sarah, and she's the one that's struggling with the, how to make her videos, audio equipment and stuff like that. So we're going to pretend that we're creating a story script for an audio technician or a business that sells audio equipment, and fill this out. Now, this is obviously very loose. This is hypothetical. I haven't done a full discovery. I haven't, really dived deep into Sarah. This is all just, surface level stuff, but I hope that you can give an example. If at any point anyone gets confused, if I'm going too fast, whatever, just chuck those questions through and we'll get to those at the end. But for now, I'll just continue on. So just looking at the character, we know her name's Sarah. What does she want? Well, we know about her. She's like a hobbyist. Is that how you spell hobbyist? Hobbyist, like a video creator. She makes those videos at home. It's a passion for her, and she wants to make great videos. I apologise. I'm going to make a heap of spelling mistakes here along the way. It's just how it is for me. She wants to make great videos. The problem she's having, if we move on to problem, and there's four different elements to this. Film, which is root cause of the problem. External, what the kind of, external outside problems are. Internal, how it's making the character feel. And then philosophical, why it's just plain wrong for customers to be burned by it. So we'll go to the top. So the main problem for her, or the villain, is what we'll say poor audio quality. And so the problem that that's kind of creating for her externally is her videos are becoming, probably hard to watch, poor quality. They look amateur. How do you spell it? Yeah. And she might be less likely to get featured in stuff. There might be cooking magazines or blogs or something that want to show videos, but if they're not really up to scratch with quality, she's going to struggle to get featured on those. So that's kind of some of the external problems. And so for her on the inside, she might be feeling a bit of embarrassment. She might be feeling a bit of shame. And these probably sound a bit extreme, but there's little elements of these that are probably playing into her. She's maybe frustrated. Oh boy. And she might, just maybe even jealousy as well. If she's seeing other creators create really good videos that look much better than hers, even though her content's better, they might be getting received better because they're better quality. And, why is this wrong? Well, making good videos doesn't have to be, super hard or expensive. Okay, so she meets a guide. So in this case, our guide is going to be the audio technicians. I've given them a name called Showtime. So Showtime is our hypothetical business that sells the kind of audio and visual equipment for video creators. So there's two parts to meet the guide, empathy and authority. So empathy is what brief statement can you make that expresses empathy and understanding. So for here, we might say something like, everyone's needs are unique, but there's always a solution that can be found. That's just kind of saying, we understand what you have is, unique. It's a problem that isn't just one size fits all, but we can help you find that. The authority in this instance for this hypothetical business will say that perhaps they, the people that started this were hobbyist videographers and creators in the past, and they grew and saw opportunity to help people. So they've come from that background to get here. So I won't run the whole thing, but we'll just say their story is what gives them authority, because they've lived in the trenches, they've made the mistakes, they've learned the lessons, all sorts of things. And so the plan that we'll give them, or Showtime will give their customers is, hey, okay, I'll sum up this one first. So yeah, who gives them a plan? There's process and agreement. Process is what are the 3 or 4 steps they can take that lead them to the sale, or how it works afterwards. So that's where you really just want to take what you do or how they will be able to work with you and really try and condense it down into really simple steps. Because it might seem simple in your head, but for others, if they're not sure what it looks like or what the process is, and I don't mean like, a big 12-step process, but you want to be able to say, it's easy as 1, 2, 3, essentially. Like these are the few things that you have to do for this to work, or this is how it'll affect you. A lot of this stuff is very lean and it'll work differently for different businesses. That's the best way I can explain it. So for this instance, we're going to say, okay, well, questionnaire. That's good enough. First step, fill out a questionnaire. Tell us what you're looking for. Tell us the problems you're having. Tell us your budget. Give us all the info you can. And step 2, we'll review it, or we'll give you some advice. So this is where they receive it, and they'll look over it, and they'll come back to you. We'll come back to you with some recommendations, some ideas for products, or maybe we'll give you more questions if we need more info. So we'll come back to you and kind of, create a dialogue. And the third step could be, once you're happy with what we've said and you like it, then we'll send you the gear. I'll try to send gear. So you've contacted them and said, this is the problem I'm having. They've said, okay, we've been there. We know what you need. Like, this is probably a good start. You've got these options for these costs, blah, blah, blah. Then you can go back and say, okay, yeah, I like this, and they'll send it to you. So it's really easy as a user for that 1, 2, 3-step process to understand how things go from here. And then listing agreements list of agreements you can make with your customers to alleviate their fears of doing business with you. So this could be any sorts of objections. So in this instance, let's say because they're selling equipment, you might think, oh, well, these guys are maybe being sponsored and they're giving us equipment that people, the brands are paying for them. So their agreement might be that we're unbiased. So, we're not financially backed by any brands. We're just, sourcing and selecting from gear that we know and trust, that we've tested. So they're not really kind of incentivized by any brands to just feed you what they want. So yeah, you've got your character, Sarah. She's got the problem. The Showtime or videographers, creators have given her kind of that empathy, shown authority, and given a plan. Here's how we can help you in simple terms. So that call to action then would essentially just be, again, like fill out our questionnaire or buy the products, whatever it is. Questionnaire. And then if they're not ready, so the direct is the kind of let's go kind of call to action. Some people at times aren't ready to do business with someone straight away. So it's good to have some form of transitional call to action. So this could be, if not by now, go read our blog or go learn more about this, check out our this, and it's some other references or resources that someone can kind of stay involved. Might be a free value offer, like download our checklist for this, and that's how you can kind of stay in their world, in their mind, without actually having them purchase from you. So for these guys, let's say they've got like a blog. So it could be, check out our blog. And the things you write here don't necessarily have to be the exact, words that are written on your website or on your whatever. Like it's just, you're just putting it down to understand the story. So yeah, after the call to action, ends in success. So for Sarah, this could be obviously she's got the equipment she needs. It all works fine. It's good. She's gained some knowledge because she's learned a bit. That's not spelled right. She's gained some knowledge. She's read their blogs, so she's learned a bit more. Perhaps she saw the process these guys had. Oh, this looks all right. She wasn't entirely sold, so she went to the blog and she found a blog article that they had about using old cameras and how to get around old equipment. Really just like straight up what she needs to know. I thought, okay, damn, yeah, these guys know what they're talking about. They have what I need. Just really drives it home. So she goes, okay, I'll do it. So she fills it out, gets that equipment, and now, that success for her is those things. She probably feels less amateur, because obviously she is an amateur videographer, creator, whatever, but she doesn't want to feel that way. She wants to feel like she's doing really great things, and maybe she's got more confidence. And then she has that potential for being featured in stuff. And the failures, I won't write them out, but that's just the opposites. So she's avoided failure in this instance by not continuing to make poor quality videos. She's solved her problem. Pretty self-explanatory. The last one here is the character transformation. So this is just kind of like a really kind of simple summary of from here to there. So, you can go as detailed or as simple with this. Looking at our character, Sarah, we know she came from being confused and frustrated with where she was to now being confident. Confident and equipped. And that's just a really simple kind of before and after for Sarah. So that's the story scripts. I went through that probably pretty quickly, but I will go back to the slides now and I'll show you kind of how this all ties into kind of the next step and actually applying this story script into your website and other stuff. So bear with me while I get out of this one and back into the other. Oh, man, so many screens. Keynote, there we go. Can you see that, Terry?
Yep.
Cool. I'll play that properly. Awesome. So we've done a story script, which we're able to fill out because we've understood our user, be that from a user persona or just from knowing who we're talking to, whatever that may be. And now we kind of have a gist of what their story, what their journey looks like with working with you. So, and we're going to reference that for everything else we do here on out. So if we just look at the summary, so kind of just putting it back to that format we saw those first stories in, you can kind of now see how that goes. So Sarah is our amateur video creator. She's got that problem of poor audio, which then creates just general poor video, and that makes her feel frustrated, embarrassed, doesn't like it. Showtime, our hypothetical business, the guys promoting content creation gear and whatnot, they've said, look, we've been there, we know what it's like. We've come from this ourselves, we've been in your shoes. Here's a plan essentially. Fill out a questionnaire, let us know what you need. And I didn't write them out, but that's those 1, 2, 3 steps we had. And then that call to action there is, be it either fill out a questionnaire or purchase of products, depends on, the language you want to use. And then going on from there, same thing. So they've got that better audio, the knowledge, confidence, and saved Sarah the hassle of buying the wrong products from the wrong vendor who didn't really take the time to understand her needs. And she hasn't had to continue making bad videos anymore. So let me just quickly now jump out again and show you what I've done is I've taken this same storyline. Where's my mouse? I've taken this same storyline and I've just really quickly whipped up a example of like a website using this story. So this is by no means an existing client or anything. I literally whipped it up just to illustrate what I'm talking about today. So I'll bring that up. So this is that same hypothetical business, and it's just touching on what we've talked about. So bear with me, I've got windows flying everywhere. Here we go, share screen. Preview. Okay, Terry, can you see that one?
Yes.
Cool, thank you. All right. So what I've done is I've created a little, illustration of a website concept for this hypothetical Showtime business. So what we've got on here when you come on is you've straight away got, aside from the typical stuff, the menu, the logo, whatever, we've got content creation equipment, create amazing home videos. So that's not the most creative thing that I came up with, but it's already, it's taking that aspirational identity that Sarah has of, I want to be creating great videos. I want to be, a really great content creator with my cupcakes and whatever. You've now just shown her straight away, like, this is what you want. So we've said, the what, content creation equipment. So she knows that this is kind of what this website's about. But it's create amazing home videos. We've got a photo there of what that looks like. So there's a girl there who's having a great time, making a video. And we've got those call to actions of get advice. So although this hypothetical business makes them, money from selling the gear, they do it by taking that assistance approach, and they're offering the help and advice to people like Sarah. They're very niched in, they're looking to help the people that have their passion but don't really understand the gear and equipment for creating videos. So they've said, get advice. So it's not buy now, it's get advice, because they're going to go to help those people. By the time someone's got all that help from these guys and had all that value given to them, it's almost a sure thing they're just going to go with these guys. Anyway, this is all hypothetical, but you can see this is the way we've kind of gone about it. Create amazing home videos. If we scroll down, don't settle for average quality. You were made for better. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. You don't want to put up all your blood, sweat and tears into your passion to end up with a video that looks cheap. So right now we're just really pressing in on that problem, because if you think about that story script, we have the character, obviously we know who that is. That's me, the person using the website. We know what her problems were, and now we're just really pressing on them and saying, don't settle for average. We're not saying the specific words we wrote down in the script, but it's stuff that we know kind of falls into that. So think about, the shame and embarrassment. It's like, oh, I can do better than this. That's what we're essentially saying with what we've got there. And then if we scroll down, this is that, here's the guide. This is where the guide enters. So this is the Showtime team, here to help you do what you do best. Everyone's needs are unique, but there's always a solution that can be found. We started a business as hobbyist creators ourselves, saw a lot of opportunity to help others, and we've learned a lot from our own mistakes. So they're talking about themselves, but it's in a way that's kind of, it's still helpful to the people that they're showing it to. And it's not so much about, look at us, look at us, look at us. It's here's how we can help you kind of thing. And we understand, showing that empathy, that authority, those keywords. So, that's where the guide enters. And if you think, we'll stop here for a second and think, just going back up to the top, we've all seen those websites where you open up the front, it's award-winning this and that. We are your number one. Literally what I was writing at the beginning for those hypothetical vendors. There's always websites that will actually put themselves straight away in the website, in that story. Whereas what we want to do is kind of talk to them first, get that, I don't like the word hook, but kind of get them hooked as to, we understand you kind of thing, and then introduce yourself later. Say, look, this is a bit about us, whatever. And again, this is not a full website, whatever, but that's where you might say, learn more about us, whatever. But that's where the guide really should enter, after you've kind of showed them what they can have and also confirmed the conversations they're having about the problems in their head. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, scrolling down, now we've got that plan. So how we help. Number one, questionnaire, tell us a bit about what you're looking for. Number two, we'll come back and give you recommendations. And three, new equipment. If you like what you see, we'll send you the gear. So anyone should be able to kind of look at that and think, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's not this full page of giant paragraphs. It's bang, bang, bang. Okay, that makes sense. And then, a call to action again, fill out a questionnaire for free advice. And it's as simple as that. So, and these guys might have the blog, and underneath that, they might have a list of products, explore products, explore the blog. But this is just my best efforts at showing you kind of how that storyline can visually be translated onto the website. Just to summarize, that top bit that's that character transformation. We know where she is, we know where she wants to be. Bang, this is where she wants to be. Now she's interested. You've got these problems. Yes, I do. Oh my God. Okay, you're here to help. I understand. Yeah, cool. All right, that makes sense. Let's do it. So it's really quite simple. But if you think about what this same business, what that journey could look like for a user, if they came on and just saw, we're the best in the business. We've got heaps of experience. Look at all our products. Like, we're the greatest. Look at these awards we've won. Like, look at our videos. It's so much of it is just not relevant. And there may be people that, want to find out about the business, and that's where they can go and dig deeper. But, it all comes down to who you're talking to and what they want to see. And again, there's different uses for these things as well. Like the way to use a story script. You might have a story script for each user group. That's usually the way we go about it. You might have one that might have them niche into different areas. Like, I want to get too crazy for you, but the best way is to just think about like what the purpose of each website is, or even page. So don't freak out if your website starts with one of those other phrases or whatever. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just about kind of taking that perspective and thinking, sitting back thinking as a user, now that I understand what their journey looks like, is my website, is my social media, or my flyers, whatever it is, are they actually making that journey simple for them? So I'll just jump back one last time to the slides when I find them. I like them. Okay, share screen. There we go. You see that, Terry?
Yeah.
Thank you. Very confused here. All right. So, in summary, the best way to kind of, summarize this is, first step, you want to understand who you're talking to, and whether that's user personas, there's tons of different exercises you can find online, whatever. You just want to understand who you're talking to. Once you understand them, then you can map their journey and their story using this story brand framework. So again, we'll send you guys all the references and resources and that mystorybrand.com site, really useful stuff. And then once you understand that, then you can design and, all your communications and stuff, whether it's web stuff, print stuff, whatever, even in person, when someone asks you what you do, rather than saying something like, I'm in this industry, you can straight away, and this is a whole other thing, that you can just go, I help XYZ with XYZ, and just that little tweak could be the difference between someone actually really understanding what you do. So, that's what I've got for you guys today. I'll hand over to Terry and she can get some questions from you guys while I...
Awesome. That was really good. And just to follow on from that as well, this is why, like, as web designers and, brand strategists and marketing strategists will do their own thing as well. But like, discovery is so important, because I find that as business owners, you're too far into it that it's quite difficult to see from an outside perspective. So doing those user personas, even though it is quite a hard task to do, because you really have to think from other people's perspectives, it draws you back out of it, so that you're able to see things more objectively. And a lot of our clients, especially rebrands and things like that, or redesigns of their website rather, almost all of them were taking it from entirely internally focused to almost entirely externally focused. So for example, we recently did a building website, and all of the content from the first get-go was, you know, we're the leading building company in Brizzy, and we're the, you know, all of that kind of stuff, award winning and all of these things. And from my perspective as a consumer, I guess I don't really give a shit. I more so care that I feel safe and comfortable with the relationship that I'm going to have with them, that they understand my needs, they understand my problems. And so coming at it from that angle is always going to be beneficial. And it's something that people forget, that you can still talk about that you're award winning without that being the focus either. So I do have a couple of questions as well after I've gone on my tangent.
That's why I was good. Good summary.
Thanks. I don't have control over the screen anymore, by the way, just FYI.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm just going to have you click when I'm ready. Here we go. So can I apply this to other mediums such as packaging, brochures and things like that?
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, essentially once you've got that story script, that's really all you need to every time you're going to apply any sort of, so yeah, in this context, marketing promotion material. You just want to look back at that and make sure that it is congruent. So it depends what is going to be on your packaging. If I take an example, it's not really packaging, but kind of is, you know, those compostable postage bags. The first thing that came to my mind, like there's a lot of really good brands out there that are on their big front of the bag saying, you know, this is 100% compostable or sustainable, whatever. It's the messaging on there speaks to the values of someone who is obviously conscious of that and wants to not contribute to, you know, land waste or whatever. So yeah, whatever it is that you want to write on your packaging or whatever, I would just look back at the story script to make sure that, yeah, it's kind of in congruency with that, and whether it's just a little thing like a value or, yeah. That makes sense, Terry? That was kind of a tangent there.
Yeah, for sure. It's difficult because obviously sometimes if you're doing brochures and stuff, they may be really quite small. But as long as you're referencing those sorts of things, and the same as anything, as long as when you're doing social media, you're back referencing to your user personas, who you're talking to, and the way that you should talk to them, then you can easily come up with shorter form content for that, longer form content, depending on what you've got going on. But I think just as a point of providing clarity, being able to reference something every time is really important, because then, like what Nick was saying, you get all that congruency, everything's really consistent as well, so that there's not, people aren't getting different ideas from different marketing materials. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I had an example actually. I thought of it similar to what I just said, but yeah, there's a brand called Allbirds. They do shoes. All the shoes are made from sustainable materials. And like I've received them in the post before, and their packaging has all this cool stuff on it that says about sustainable, it's this, it's that, and a heap of cool. I can't remember off the top of my head, but all the messaging is like very similar to what's on the website. So again, it's all in congruency there, which is quite important. And like you said, sometimes it might not mean needing to change anything, but you just don't want to be sending the wrong message, or not sending a good message if you could be. So yeah, that's the best way I can answer that.
Yeah, awesome. Another question is, what do I do if I have 5 or 6 different services? Does the format still work?
Yeah, so this is where I almost started going down that tangent before, but thought I don't want to get too crazy, but it makes sense now. So sometimes if you've got such different user groups, you need to speak differently to them. So it's hard for on one page, like we just did it there with that one, but there's going to be times where you've got different user groups e.g. services, for example, that you need to talk to different people. I'll use an example of recently working with a real estate agency. So these guys are, among other things, selling properties, but also doing property management. So there's two different user groups in there. One's that seller and one's like a landlord wanting to get their property managed. So they're completely different in their needs. Like you can't speak to both of them at the same time. So that's on a website like that. You might not go too crazy with this messaging stuff, getting too particular with it on the homepage. It might mean what you do is for each of those services, so in this instance, sell and manage, that's when you apply this. Or if there's landing pages or, if there's different service pages, you almost want to now kind of niche further and do the same thing for that service. So if it's property management, then all the messaging, all the titles, the headings is what we just did, but for just that one user group story script of the landlord persona. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It is quite difficult if you think about businesses such as like lawyers, for example, when you might have a lawyer firm that does family law. They also do commercial law, which is obviously so different, and things like that, where again, you do it on the landing pages or on the service pages. But I think from like a homepage point of view, you can still follow to some degree the script, but more, I would say, pulled back on a, most people will have the same emotional needs. Most of it is to feel supported. Most of it's to feel understood. And so finding ways of wording things in that format, I guess, on a homepage when you do have really specific services still gives them the feeling of safety that makes them want to explore more, I guess, as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Would it work for business to business?
Yeah. In this case of what we're doing here, they're the same, B2B and B2C. So business customer, business to business. Like, in this scenario, or in this world of the messaging and stuff on your website marketing, they're both a customer. So if your user group, like it doesn't matter if the user that you've built this story around is, a typical customer or a business owner, if that makes sense. So even just take that that example we did with the Showtime, they were targeting, your typical consumer, business consumer. It would be very similar if that business was targeting, say, an agency or like a content creation agency that wanted to make better videos, or anyone who wanted to create. So it can be done for either. I don't think it makes a huge difference whether they're B2B or B2C.
Yeah, I think ultimately there's still a decision maker that has to make the choice as to whether to go with that provider or not. To give an example, we did a website for what you call linings, which are like almost separating walls and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to explain. And also ceiling stuff. But essentially their clients were massive businesses. So it's quite difficult to think about, how am I going to appeal to a massive business? But ultimately they're dealing with the project managers of those businesses and they're the decision makers. And again, like all of the written content was more about how they're relationship driven and how they're collaborative and how they love to work and support people. And it's the same thing as what they would be doing writing wise as if they were talking to their consumers, because everyone still has the same needs ultimately on an emotional level especially. So
everyone's got problems. Doesn't matter whether they're business or not.
Exactly. And cool. And what should I do if I have a really long process?
Yeah, it's tricky. Obviously, without much more context, the best I could say is kind of do your best to simplify, because there may be an opportunity to share the full process with them at some stage, but you don't want to overwhelm them straight away. So even if one of those few steps is about finding out about the process properly. So essentially that 3-step process that we're referencing here doesn't have to be your process of actually doing business. It's just basically showing them how easy it is to engage with you or what it looks like to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
So you might say in like step 2 might be this, and this is a big 12-step process, but you're condensing it down for them to say, we start here, we do this, then we do this. But those thises in between might be quite deep, extensive things, but at least they can, from the get-go, on that like first interaction, they go, okay, I understand. They don't know exactly what step 2 entirely consists of, but they know how it fits into everything. For example, this is not how we do it, and we're working around as a time being anyway. But if we look at, say, what I showed you before with that little graph, it was like you could almost say, like, web design steps. It's when we do discovery, then we do strategy, and then we do design. And there's obviously a lot inside each of those. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different parts, but we can summarize that, and so someone will go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So they understand what those things mean without knowing everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think the main point of doing it is really to make people feel like they don't have to do too much work. They want it to be really easy. And most of the time, even with people who have like really extensive processes, it is easy because you're essentially taking the work on yourself as a business rather than them taking on the work. So even if it's a matter of do the questionnaire and then we'll create a plan and then this is the result of that. Whereas the plan is obviously going to be this really in-depth kind of thing, like with what we do, or for example, an accountant firm, they have to do a million things in order to get to the point where they get to at the end. But they're doing that internally, whereas it really needs to be said that it's quite easy for the user's standpoint, most definitely. And then you can outline it more closely with them once you get to that point of having a lead with them and things like that as well. Yeah, cool. All right, I've just got one last question. How do I know what their internal problems are as someone that doesn't know them?
Yeah, well, I guess that just takes, you need to kind of take that step and try and put yourself in their shoes. So obviously what I did there was hypothetical with Sarah, our character. But even just to get that kind of surface level info, all I had to do was just kind of put myself in her position and think, well, how would I feel if that kind of thing, because we can, you can take it really far and you can do full market research and user testing and this and that and all this stuff that, is a lot of money and time and stuff like that. But even just as simple as trying to change your perspective and put yourself in their shoes can be enough to at least just get you thinking about them. The other option is obviously if you can access these people is just go and talk to them. So if you know someone who is in that position, just have that conversation, just ask them. And yeah, I think just trying to get that perspective is probably a really good start. And then there's, always looking at going onto forums and stuff online. Maybe not everyone's into that kind of thing, but places like Reddit and stuff, there's always little groups and communities of people that are, having those kind of issues and stuff, or sharing their problems, sharing solutions. But that's also another place, kind of externally you can go to learn a bit more about your users and your groups, that kind of thing. Do you have anything else to add there, Terry?
No, that was really good. I think I might have said it on every single webinar, but to reiterate what Nick said, if you don't know, ask. Because I think people get real wall up. Oops, I keep knocking my microphone. People get a real wall up where they feel like they can't just have vulnerable conversations with their own clients. But honestly, people love to feel heard and people love to give feedback and feel like they're actually helping you as well. So always ask. I think it's a really easy way of understanding why, what their pain points were to begin with, especially if they're existing clients, because they're already sold on you. They already know. They knew how you solved their problem as well. So that can be really insightful feedback. So I definitely think that's good. Forum's awesome. I think I had something else in my brain, but I've forgotten what it was. So that's fine. Oh, hang on. Give me 2 seconds and I will try and remember it. No, I've forgotten. It's 3 p.m. So my brain has gone to sleep. That's fine. I think those are all the questions that we have. But please, if anyone has any other questions in the next screen, which I'll get Nick to tab over to.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, in the screen after this one, but quickly to touch on, we do all of our webinars that we've hosted so far. We are giving people the option of donating to a local non-for-profit here called Skylight, and they work with people who are dealing with mental illness and also supporting their families and things like that. And they do a lot of really good local work. So thank you for anyone that chose to donate to them as a part of registering. And if you do want to check them out, you can do so with the website down below. And then if you tab over to the next one. Cool. So if you have any questions, please get in touch with us. More than happy to help out. And I will be sending everyone, we'll send that guide that Nick was filling out with the different sections in it. I also have a really good example of what essentially would be a wireframe, which is like a non-designed website page with some content in it as well, which has a lot of content to really break down a lot of those sections. And then if Nick's happy to, I'll share that PDF that he was walking you through today with the sound business and just any other resources that we have to hopefully help you with this kind of framework of writing, designing, whatever it is. And a large amount of this you can definitely do yourself. It's just a matter of, again, like stepping out of your business for a second. And just as a side note, just as a fun tip of the day, if you are going to like make the effort of trying to figure out your user personas, go into this whole thing, leave your office or your workplace and go somewhere else. Go somewhere far away to a cafe or a pub or whatever it is that you fancy, and do it there so that you're in a totally separate headspace and you can really dive deep into it without having to worry about answering the phone or emails and things like that. So that's my fun tip. Nick, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, like, you know, sometimes I struggle to articulate myself anyway, but a lot of the stuff I talked about, you know, like it's more just I'm sharing a perspective, stuff that I've recently come across, and it's kind of changed the way I see and do things, and it's been quite effective in the work that I'm doing. But it's not that one size fits all. Like I had the example, but every business is different, you know, different news and stuff. So if anyone, obviously has questions and stuff, feel free to get in touch. If anyone wants us to just sit down with them and go through their website, if someone's just a bit confused after all of this and maybe sat there still thinking, well, I don't know if mine works, I don't know if it's right, then like me in particular, I don't know you, Terry, but I'm more than happy for someone to reach out and we can glide through and I can give you some feedback and that kind of thing. Because it's kind of difficult to try and convey some of this stuff when it can be so broad and general, but also so hyper specific and niche depending on who it is. So obviously this format, I can't go too crazy and I don't want to overwhelm, but it's one of those things I think it more just kind of clicks with you. Like I read the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I had to then read it a second time for it to actually click in my head. And once it did, it was like literally flicking the switch. I was like, oh my God, now everything I saw, everything I did was like, oh no, okay. And so it was like understanding the formula. So, and then once you kind of know how to do it, then you know how to apply it, you know, be it for your holistic business or for each individual service or niche group, whatever it is, it's kind of like just being able to apply it. So yeah, if anyone has any, wants any help, whatever, feel free to reach out and we can go from there. But hopefully this all made sense and was valuable.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Again, I was thinking about saying something. I've forgotten what it was, but that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Nick. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thanks for imparting all of your wisdom on everyone. That was really good. And yeah, just keep learning, guys. And yeah, we'll see you next time. I never know how to end these webinars, so I'm just going to say bye. See you next
Okay.
time.
Catch you later.
Bye.